So anyhow, that's so we'll keep going here. Good stuff though. And I think I remember asking Grandpa, why you guys call me Brian Matthew Bonnet? And he's all, it was your mom's idea or something like that. He didn't know. And I personally don't like Brian Matthew. I don't really. It's one thing if my first name was Matthew, but I went by Matt. I never really cared for Brian, but it is my name, but I normally don't use Brian Matthew Bonnet. I leave the Matthew out. I don't even like Brian M Bonnet. Funny story though, I was at Lowe's, and I probably told you a story when I retired, and I was in the nursery section, and so there was a older blonde lady there, and the cashier or whatever, and it's a slow board, and I was the only customer there, and I think there was another employee there, and I was asking her about fruit trees. They didn't have fruit trees yet, so we started talking, and so we were kind of I joked around with her, and she's all, I bought it, and then I have an account, so I gave my phone number, and so my account comes says, my husband's named Brian also. I'm all, with an I or a Y, and she's all Y, and I just straight up told her, I said, it's not too late for him to, change his name, to at least BRIAN, right? But it's funny, for my license plate, I used the BRYZ, like SVT or 150, like my truck, my personalized plate. And so you remember my personalized plate when I had the Contour and the Focus, I'm sure, Bryce with a Y. And that came about from Auntie. So the story I got that because we had to punch in. I don't know if you had to. Well, you have to punch in the letters, but there wasn't I couldn't do BRI apostrophe S, right? SVT, right? Does that make sense? So I still wanted to say Bryce. I was like, man, it doesn't, or even BRISZ was too many letters, and so it was Auntie that suggested, well, how about BRYZ SVT? And well, that's perfect. And it's funny. That's like I think it's the password or what is, I start up my truck. It's got, navigation or whatever thing, which I don't really use, but it says it's connected to Bry's phone. So a bit BRYZ. Anyway, it's more information than you want to know. So we'll continue with the storytelling. Do you like or dislike your name? I just told you a story. If you could choose a different name, what would it be? Yeah. Rick isn't a bad name. Matt. Yeah. And it's just, normal, but, cupcakes are already taken too, bro. Sound like my father, How old were your parents when you were born? I was 19. Were your parents when you were born? I don't know how old they were. I think they were in their 20s. I was the last one. So, anyhow, are there any stories you were told about your birth? Supposedly I was premature. I don't know how premature. Your favorite grandmother, but probably wouldn't remember. But I was pretty premature, and so the story goes is they gave her, So when we were growing up, we didn't know she was bipolar, and she didn't know she was bipolar. But bipolar people tend to do a drug, and hers was happened to be alcohol. So all our time with her. A few times I remember her drunk, but just always having Olympia beer and Camel non-filtered cigarettes, right? And it was just remind me to tell you a story about the Camel cigarettes from Castle Rock Park along Skyline Boulevard. But anyway, so I don't know. I forget what I was saying about that. But I think the tea's starting to kick in. I'm getting tired. Granted, it is 6 o'clock. I tried to take a nap earlier and I couldn't fall asleep. But so anyhow, she was alcohol. That's just I remember, and her like not being around a lot. I remember when we were at. So the 2 communes we lived at, right? So we left Campbell, and when we moved from Campbell on Loyalton Street, Loyalton, 4th house down from the end, I forget, but we moved to Daybreak, which is by Lexington Reservoir off Black Road. The main entrance, or the front entrance, was on Black Road. It's now a park. You can walk there. The school buildings, some of them are still there. I think the high school that John attended is there. The elementary school was. Sometimes you come out here, we'll go. I would love to show you. But anyhow, there was a back entrance where the village was. So the school portion of it that had a pond in the front was off Bear Creek Road, and there was a road that connected that went down below to the village, and the village is where we all lived. But there was a second entrance past Lexington before the sharp turn. Where there's a gate, and that was the back entrance, and that is the entrance. It's the last entrance before the left turn that goes up over Summit. So we're talking right past the Cal Fire Station. If you're going towards Santa Cruz, it's on the right, and there's a big wall there where me and Lisa were playing on the top of that hill. You know, they carved it out for the highway, right? So at the top of the hill, there was the true story. A school bus that somebody had tried living in, one of the hippies, right? It was a commune, right? An alternative school, actually, is what it was. And so teachers and stuff, lived in the village. And so it was the other gate. But so anyhow, the school bus, we would play in there, and I'd get in the driver's seat, and Lisa would hold on. It was just stationary. I didn't run. I'd be shifting gears and stuff. And so anyhow, we were playing in the backside was at the very top of the hill there. The whole roadway is down here if you head towards Santa Cruz this way, and then the road banks right there. And so at the very top, we were playing, and I dropped my Evel Knievel lunchbox, a little metal lunchbox I had. And so me and Lisa, since we were on top, we went back. You had to walk through the village and then follow the road down to that gate. And then we walked up Highway 7. Back then it was only 2 lanes, one in each direction. But it's narrow, especially right there. And now it's 2 lanes. But maybe it was 2 lanes back then. That was 1976 or 77, maybe. Because I was in kindergarten, so that I was born in 1970. 5 years old, I would have been kindergarten, so probably 6 years old. We were at Daybreak, and so I had our cars honking and shit like that. But yeah. Anyway. What was I talking about? I don't know, Max. So anyhow, I was premature, and so to get me to that's what I was talking about, and I went off the tangent. But so back to Grandma. her addiction was alcohol, right? So and being bipolar, and so they didn't know she was bipolar then, but I guess back then they gave alcohol IVs to slow down the birthing process, and they did that with her with me, but I still came early. But I probably would have. I don't know how much. I'm kind of curious how much time you'd actually get, but kind of makes me want to have a Coors Light though. Right? Maybe that's what happened to Uncle John too. I don't know. Mm. We just like we like some people don't drink. We drink. Well, I don't think none of us are horrible. I've been trying to cut back some. I'm not gonna have any more today. When Uncle Jeff was here, I was wondering if he was gonna have a beer. I put some extras in the cooler that I still had some ice from when I came up. First thing he did when he got here, he opened a beer. I was like, okay, so I had one. I think I might have had three by the time he left. I'm not gonna have any more, so it's just Coors Light. So that's why I'm having tea. Just makes me feel better instead of beer. So, anyway, back to your crazy grandmother. She probably give me more IVs. One in each arm. I don't know. That's fucked up for me to say, but anyhow. Oh, you want to hear the story about she smoked too. She Camel non-filters until the day she called and told me she quit. And I tapped on the phone. Hey, Mom, you're breaking up. I think you just said you quit smoking. That was after she burned almost. She almost. You don't remember when you were a kid, but she had fallen asleep at her chair. She had like a reclining chair in her apartment, and she already was having. We knew she was bipolar at that point, but she had fallen asleep in a recliner with a tissue box or wastebasket on the ground full of tissue because she's got allergies, so she always has tissue. She literally walks around with a Kleenex box, if not like 3 of them. And she dropped a cigarette. She fell asleep, and the cigarette fell into the thing, and so it didn't catch the place. But the smoke detector went off, and it alerts. It's a senior complex, so it alerts somebody, and it just burned like a hole in the carpet, like the size of the. I think it was a metal waste bin, luckily, but it burned through the nylon carpet, and fire department came and stuff like that. But anyhow, back to the story of the Camel Eyes. So we lived on. So the second one was on Skyline Boulevard. So if you went up Bear Creek or Black Road, we went to school when we finally went to public school after going to the second commune, which we call Pacific. We call it Pacifica. There is a town called Pacifica, but that is not what we reference as Pacifica, which its real name was Pacific High School. And it was located on Skyline Boulevard, north of Highway 9. It's about 2 miles north, I think, is where the property gate is. It's some sort of like meditation temple. So when we lived, so I was talking about Daybreak was the first one. Second one was Pacifica, is what we call, John and Lisa and I call, but it was Pacific High School, which had been an alternative school, just like Daybreak. It's just there was no little kids at Pacifica, and when Daybreak shut down, because there were other kids and parents and teachers all living there, and so Mom got a job at that point I think, and we in Felton, and we bought the house in Felton, and she was working somewhere in Santa Cruz or something. Uh, uh, and then she sold that and moved us to Pacifica. And that is when John says no, because he started going to public school in when we lived in Felton. So I must have been in second grade. He was a freshman. Lisa was in there. She was 2 years, 3 years ahead of me. Is that right? Fifth grade. Well, she wound up being 3, but she should have been 2. But Kalila stayed back 1 year when we finally went to public school after living in Felton. Because then when she sold that place, we moved to Pacifica. John went to go with Grandpa and Claudia because Dad and Claudia had already bought the house in East San Jose and it had a swimming pool, right? And John was able to go to high school, but he went to his high school where his 2 best friends, who were brothers at Daybreak, they also went to Daybreak, but they lived in San Jose and were brought up. I don't think they ever lived there. They were brought up, I guess, daily. And they went right across the street from Westgate Mall. And so on the, what is it, Goodyear Tire or something on that side. Anywho, on Hamilton, right on the Hamilton side. So Dennis Collins was the father. So anywho, so then me and Lisa went to Pacifica, and then I think that's when Pacifica got closed down and we were living there. But when we went to Pacifica, that's when it had been an alternative school, but it was closing down basically at the time we got there. And so we lived in the Dome, which the high school kids that were had attended there, that one of their projects was working as groups and building these dome shaped buildings and different ways of building those, and scattered throughout, I think it was 40 acres. And there was a pond, lower pond. I have stories about the pond and us time with there. And so at a point, we didn't go to, there was no school. I remember your crazy mother driving us to like a bookstore, but it was more like I think school supply store somewhere in Los Gatos or South San Jose, somewhere over by Los Gatos there. And we got a couple of handbooks, but that was that. It might have been Saratoga. We used to be down in Saratoga all the time. We saw the Alpha Beta there. Well, it used to be Alpha Beta. Next to the corner was Chevron, and then it was Alpha Beta. Then across the street was the Pizza Mr. Magoo's, where they showed the old Mr. Magoo's cartoon videos by projector. Mr. Magoo's, but anyhow, there's Alpha Beta. We would cut mistletoe and sell it. Your grandma, me, and Lisa at Alpha Beta there out in front. I think we set up like a little table or something, $1 a bag. I think we put them in like a Ziploc bags, or they didn't have Ziploc probably back then, just like a plastic bag or something. Or maybe we put ribbon on it. It was at Christmas time. So anyhow. Yeah, good times. So anyhow, so we lived in a couple of the different domes there. So one we refer to as the foam dome, and there's pictures of it. Outside the foam dome was a yellow submarine. One of the class projects or something, they built this little like 1-person submarine, and supposedly it had been in the pond. So there was a pond there. It was up on this hillside right when you walk out the front door of this foam dome. And the foam dome was the only dome that I believe had electricity. All the others didn't. And so we lived there a short time, and then we moved to another one. And I remember spending the night there, but I just remember because for whatever reason, we actually lived on one on the corner of the property, way in the back. Uh, Great sight, a big old hill there. So the hill is pretty steep. Me and the auntie, those big food donation barrels, the yellow ones back in the day. That'd be 55-gallon, like cardboard drum or something, like heavy duty drum. We would roll it to the top of the hill, and I think we both had a pillow, so we put the pillows in there, climb in and roll down the hill. And we used to do that all the time, just going through the grass, to see who could, see how much higher we could go. And but so there was another dome. I remember we were at least slept there a little bit, and that's where your grandma had. I think she had like some sort of probably tooth pulled, probably the first of all of them, because she's had dentures for a long time, and I forget what I was gonna say about. Well, it's about the dome, staying there, and there was another lady. I don't know why the other lady, but mom had a big old bottle of Burgundy wine, Gallo. Gallo it used to come in a big gallon glass jar, super heavy. She would always have that around, and Olympia beer, and the Camel cigarette. So it's a park. It's called Castle Rock Park on Skyline Boulevard. So me and her in her Datsun B210, we would go down there sometimes. Just it was nearby, right? And so when you live in the mountains and stuff, and so you can climb up. There's rocks you can climb up. Some stuff some people do, like professional rock climbers, but there's like little cave things that you can crawl up into. It's great for kids. So me and mom were there, and she had Olympia beer. She no water, nothing to eat or anything. So, but she smoked. She's got cigarettes and beer. And so I'm thirsty. I'm a kid, and so she would give me, if I was thirsty and she didn't have water, she'd give me beer, right? So I took a swig of her beer, and it was just the very bottom of it, but she had used it to put her cigarettes out. So never drink anybody else's beer. That was at Castle Rock. I remember that. I was like, it is disgusting, and spit it out. I was probably, I wonder how old I was then. A tow truck just went up the road. Probably trying to tow that semi truck that tried to get going up. It's probably stuck now. They ain't gonna help you. The truck drivers, 40-foot trailer, they Google sends that, this is a shortcut up over the pass, and dumbasses usually break down most of the time and sometimes block both lanes. Sometimes they have to bring a big ass tow truck and everything else. Anyhow, we're gonna go back to the book here. Jesus Christ, stories getting off me. Oh, let's do this one. Birth, my birth. Yeah, she gave 2 IVs of probably Jim Beam or something each arm to keep me coming from a day early. It's probably where I got my twitch from. So anyhow, were you a healthy baby, or were you the health concerns? So supposedly I had, when I was like an infant, a year or less, I think, I had pneumonia and was in the hospital. That's the only time I know of I've been in the hospital. So I even wrote that about the alcohol at birth. Hopefully it was Coors Light. I said the IVs were Coors Light. Maybe that's where I went wrong. Probably Gallo, the Burgundy wine, or Olympia beer. So yeah, I'm gonna go until my tea is gone, and you're halfway. Okay. So what are some stories your parents have shared with you about when you were a baby? I don't remember the age. I'm telling you the memories. That's where we're going. They don't. Uh, so if we're talking about stories of them, so uh, I know, Grandpa was, and it was just Pete, right? Pete and Granddad, and so uh, one time they were at the dinner table. This story from Grandpa to me, that Pete would like squish peas through his teeth so it's all green and show, and it made uh, your grandpa spit out his food, I think. And this is at like a dinner table. Back then dinner's important part of the day, right? You're to sit. Grandma was there, Granddad was there, and so Grandpa got in trouble because of what Uncle Pete did to by squishing out the peas and made him. I think he spit out his milk, if I remember correctly, and yeah, good stuff. I do remember that. What is your earliest memory? That's kind of stupid. I don't know. What was the same or different about the way you were cared for as a baby compared to the way your own parents were cared for? Well, I was just telling you about the commune. How many other people Um, well, again, we went from Campbell, the suburbs, to two communes and living there, and also living in Felton. And me and Lisa actually stayed in Felton after once Pacifica closed down. That's when Grandma, my mom, was dating Dennis, who owned Captain Clippers. He was a barber in downtown Felton on Main Street and Highway 9 there, that strip. And it was directly across from Foster's Freeze. There was Foster's Freeze on the corner. Highway 9 actually turns this way. Oh, I know. Actually, Highway 9 goes this way. So I forget what the road is when you come into Felton there. But Foster's Freeze was on the corner, and there was a little bar on the outskirts of the parking lot for Foster's Freeze. But anyhow, his barbershop was right across the street. And then he lived in like I think it was a 2-bedroom little cottage with a garden bed in the center directly behind that building. So where his barbershop is still there. Well, I don't know about the barbershop, but the building is. And when we were there, it was a Mexican restaurant, I think. No, it was a bar. It was like a lounge, I guess, if I remember correctly, like a lounge. And Dennis was a drinker too. They were always at that little bar across the street. And so, when Pacifica closed down, we had moved into his place there. And Mom and Lisa, at that point, Lisa wanted to go live with Dad. And Lisa and Grandma were always fighting. And, I'm just in the middle, right? And so, but your grandma didn't want her to leave. So, she's getting child support now. She's got one less child. She's getting money for, right? What's she gonna buy the cigarettes and Olympia beer, so grandma fought it all the way, and then finally, actually, they went to court, and we all had to go into the court. I think it was a mediator, if I remember correctly, and Lisa said, "I don't want to see her ever again," and I agreed to see her, a couple weekends of summer or something like that. Me and Grandma went to Morro Bay and to Magic Mountain, just the two of us. So she had rented a car, and so she So she was living in Watsonville, if I remember correctly. So they rented a car, came and picked me up, I think, in East San Jose. Claudia would probably know this. And unless she picked me up at Grandma and Granddad's house, that's probably what they did. She rented one, and so me and her drove to down there. And so in Gilroy, she was off staring at the clouds and shit, and she took the exit for the truck waste station. Nothing happened. She just had to drive through it and then get back on. But I think she said, "Oh, yeah, I was looking at the clouds or something." She's kind of spacey, right? And so that's funny. She also so she rented a car, and we were in Morro Bay, and I think she put the car keys in the trunk, and I closed the trunk because it was open, so I closed it. And she had set the keys down inside there, so she had to call. I think she actually rented it from Marty Franich Ford in Watsonville, I think. So they had to call the dealership. They had to give the code or the key code to locksmith to do it. I remember she had to get a locksmith or something like that. So we got stuck there before coming back. But yeah, she took one time. So she had an apartment in Watsonville. I had a swimming pool. I like to swim, so I'd go down there and on a weekend and swim and stuff like that. I remember one time I was swimming in the evening or something, and a couple kids that lived there or something came, and I was there just by myself. I was just swimming, and they came, and they were, I think, older than me or something, maybe about the same age. And they're like, "Hey, you wanna swim for competition?" I'm like, "Okay, all right." And I think we raced 2 times, and I won both of them. And they didn't ask me to swim again. I think I left at that point. I was like, okay, it's not fun swimming anymore. Earliest memory, what was the same? We're cared for compared to your other parents. We're cared for. Grandpa worked at a gas station, pumping gas back then, but I think he would change oil and stuff too at the shop there. And because he was mechanically inclined, and so was, I think so was Uncle Pete. And maybe more so on Grandpa's side. I don't quite remember. But I remember Pete, I think they worked on stuff together or something. Because they used to I think they did some racing at the drag strips or something like that. I know Grandpa has raced at Half Moon Bay Airport, or used to be a drag strip, and he used to tell me stories of. I think he drove his Edsel out there. But he also at one point had like a 3-window coupe or something like that. With a flathead. But with the P-47 Mustang airplanes starting up, and there was like World War II plane, right? And because this was this was probably in the 50s at that point. Grandpa was probably 40 something, 42 probably, something like that, or maybe even 40. 1940, so World War II. Yeah, probably early 50s or something, when he was a teen or something. But they so yeah, he used to drag at Fremont Raceway 2, somewhere on the east side along 101. There was a drag strip too, he told me. Maybe Monterey Highway, something like that. But anyway, where were we? What do you know about the house you lived in as a baby? How long did you live there? So that was Um, that was the Campbell house. That's what the house that grandpa, when John was born in Virginia, I think, and because that's where grandpa was stationed in the Coast Guard. And then he came back to California. I think he served 4 years there, or was in the Coast Guard 4 years. I don't know if that maybe it was 3 years or something. I don't know. But anyhow, and then they moved here, and I think they rented or something. But then they eventually bought the house in Campbell and Loyalton. But and I think Gamma and Granddad helped buy it, like the down payment or something. Not sure if Pop did, because back then Pop wasn't wealthy, but he was okay. And he had a house in Los Altos. It was even Los Altos back there, but it was mostly like engineers and stuff. So it wasn't like even in East San Jose, or it was a lot of farmland back then. But it wasn't like King and Story or something like that. That probably wasn't even a thing back when Dad was there. But but yeah, so they bought a house in Campbell, and that was the first house. So that's the house when it snowed. When it snowed in the 70s, I remember having snow in Campbell and all the lawns had snow on them. And so all our friends in the neighborhood got to stay home, but Mom made us go to school. So, it was all melted by the time we got out, I think. But, and then so Campbell, there was, it was just a rancher, a new rancher at that back then. Now it's an old rancher, and but we used to. John got into us thinking like doing rock climbing or something like that, and they at one point, I don't remember Grandma being around any. All our memories of playing and stuff, Grandma wasn't there. So I don't know if she was working then. I assume she was. I think she's worked at the Emporium or something like that. I think Grandma Grandma Ione worked at like Emporium, I think, for years, I think. But anyway, because they lived in Palo Alto and stuff, Emporium was more upscale back then, and. So I assume she probably worked, Redwood City, or maybe even Palo Alto or something like that, or Stanford. Stanford was now becoming what it is today. Really ritzy area. But, John had us, so we were rappelling off the chimney, off the roof. And I was in kindergarten, I assume, maybe even before I don't know, but John was in charge because Mom wasn't there. So back to Mom, so Mom drank. So John has vivid memories because he was older than us, driving home from a party with Mom driving, and she was drunk, and he thought for sure that we were gonna all die and crash. So he was like ready to grab the steering wheel and as they were driving home from this party, and she was fucking just drunk. So and so only us kids and John and were around in Campbell, and so we were doing that. Me and Auntie. For some reason, there was a dumpster. Maybe it was the dumpster. Maybe if Mom would decide to, she sold it. She got a divorce, and then she sold it to move us to Daybreak, I guess. Or that's what happened. Not I guess. That's what happened. And so there was a dumpster out in front, and maybe she was throwing stuff away. I don't know. Me and Lisa were playing with matches. We caught